Okay, so today we're diving into some fascinating stuff about Leo Tolstoy. And I mean, it's a real mix. We've got a bunch of biographical material, and there's even some stuff in Gujarati.
Yeah, a real challenge for us.
Totally. And our mission, if we choose to accept it, is to pull out all the essential biographical stuff, dates and places and family connections, but also to really get at the core of Tolstoy's thinking, the insights that made him so influential.
Right. So we're aiming to give our listeners like a direct line to understanding this literary giant.
Exactly. A shortcut to Tolstoy.
Like it.
All right, so where do we begin with Tolstoy?
Well, I mean, I guess the beginning is always a good place to start.
Huh, good point. So, Tolstoy, born in Yasnaya Polyana, Russia, August 28th, 1828. Got that.
Got it.
But here's the thing. Think about the world he was born into. Alexander I was ruling Russia. Serfdom was still a thing. I mean, basically slavery, right?
Right. And on top of that, you've got the shadow of Napoleon's invasion. Like, that was still fresh in everyone's minds. It just sets the stage for this world of turmoil and upheaval.
And inequality, huge inequality, which probably, I mean, you can just imagine, had a major impact on his thinking later on.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that kind of social and political landscape is going to shape you, especially when you're growing up in the thick of it.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the family a bit. His father was Nikolai, a military man, a veteran, but no mention of his mother's name in these sources. Kind of strange.
Yep.
Anyway, Nikolai came from this old, wealthy family, like really deep aristocratic roots. And get this, he had 5 kids. Leo was the youngest. And there's mention of an older brother, Vivian.
5 kids. Wow. I wonder what the family dynamics were like.
Yeah, and we know that Tolstoy lost both his parents pretty young.
That must have been incredibly tough. I mean, to lose both parents so early, it's bound to leave a mark.
Definitely. And it gets even more interesting. After his parents died, it was his grandmother and aunts who raised him.
So he had a pretty unconventional upbringing for an aristocrat.
And that's not all. He went to university, but get this, he had to leave because he wasn't exactly a model student. Not very diligent, they said.
Huh. Well, that's kind of surprising considering how much he wrote and how profound his work is.
I know, right? It just goes to show, there are many paths to becoming a brilliant thinker. Formal education isn't everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. What about Tolstoy's personality? What was he like?
Okay, well, the sources paint a pretty interesting picture, actually.
Okay, lay it on me.
So on the one hand, he was physically strong, loved hunting, enjoyed a good game of chess.
Sounds pretty typical for an aristocrat of that time.
Right. But then there's this other side. Seems like he was a bit of a, how do I say this? A bit of a wild one in his younger days. Gambling, romantic entanglements, that sort of thing.
Wait a minute, hold on. So are we talking about the same guy who later became this super serious moral philosopher?
Yep, one and the same. It's almost like he lived 2 different lives. It makes you think, doesn't it? What causes those kinds of shifts in a person? Maybe that early period of, let's call it indulgence, is what led him to embrace a simpler, more ethical life later on.
Almost like a reaction to it, right?
Exactly. Like he had to experience that kind of emptiness before he could really find his way.
Interesting. And it seems that he really did find his way later in life because the sources talk about him developing this really strong work ethic. And he became known for living this incredibly simple life. Like simple clothes, hard physical labor, all that.
And we're not just talking about, a symbolic gesture or two. This guy was out there farming, making shoes, carpentry, the real deal.
Wow, talk about a transformation. And you know what else strikes me? This idea that he really connected with the everyday people, the common people, the peasants.
Yes, totally. It wasn't just some theoretical thing for him. He genuinely valued their way of life, their perspective.
Right, and that seems to tie in with this core principle of his. Living according to your conscience, your own moral compass, even if it means going against the grain.
Absolutely. I mean, he was a real individualist in that sense. He believed in following his own truth, even when it meant clashing with societal expectations, with the church, even with his own family.
Which is a great segue to talk about his personal life and, well, those deep beliefs he's known for. So he married Sofia Andreevna Bears, and they had a large family. But at the same time, he was grappling with all these internal conflicts, these spiritual struggles, and he poured all of it into his diaries. Can you imagine those diaries?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I bet they're like a gold mine of self-reflection and philosophical exploration.
And it's not like those diaries were just some private thing. I mean, they really shaped his public pronouncements, his increasingly radical views.
Absolutely. And those views, They really challenged the status quo. His advocacy for nonviolence and simple living, that resonated far beyond Russia's
And
borders.
then there's his relationship with a religion, right?
Ah, yes. That's a whole chapter in itself.
Because his views evolved so much over time, and it ultimately led to him being excommunicated from the Russian Orthodox Church. I mean, that's a huge deal.
It was. And it really shows you how deeply he felt about his beliefs. To stand up to such a powerful institution, I mean, that takes guts.
It's like he was saying, look, my conscience, my understanding of things, this is more important to me than belonging to this church.
Right. And it wasn't just about some minor disagreement about theology. He really questioned the church's authority, their relationship with the state, their wealth, their rituals.
And he was also really critical of the hypocrisy he saw. Like, they preached one thing, but often acted in a totally different way.
Exactly. It's like he was saying, you can't just talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk.
So beyond that, what were some of the other core themes in his belief system?
Well, he was all about love, compassion, forgiveness. These were like guiding principles for him.
And it's clear he was wrestling with some pretty big questions, like what's the meaning of life? What's the point of all this material wealth?
Right. He was constantly searching for deeper meaning, for truth, for a way to live a more authentic and moral life. And this searching, this questioning, it's a big part of why his work still resonates with people today.
Definitely. Right. So remember earlier we talked about his influence extending beyond Russia.
Yeah.
Well, get this. The sources specifically mention his correspondence with Mahatma Gandhi. They actually discussed nonviolent resistance together. I mean, how cool is that?
That's an amazing connection. Two giants of history bouncing ideas off each other.
And it really shows you the power of Tolstoy's ideas. He wasn't just some isolated thinker, locked away in his study. His work had a real impact on the world, especially on social and political movements.
And I think what really resonated with Gandhi was Tolstoy's emphasis on love as a force for change, like real transformative love and the rejection of violence in all its forms.
Right. Tolstoy was convinced that violence only breeds more violence. And Gandhi, of course, took those ideas and ran with them, developing his own philosophy of satyagraha, which essentially means truth force or soul force.
And it was incredibly effective in both India and South Africa.
So another key part of Tolstoy's thinking was this belief in the power of individual conscience. The idea that everyone has the potential for moral awakening, for real inner transformation.
And that kind of inner transformation is what ultimately leads to societal change, right? Like, you change the world by changing yourself.
Right. And he was also incredibly critical of social inequality.
Yes, he was outraged by the exploitation of the poor, by the vast gap between the haves and have-nots.
Which is really interesting, right? Because he was born into this world of privilege.
It is. But he really made an effort to understand the lives of the peasants, to connect with them on a deeper level. He spent time working alongside them, learning their customs, listening to their stories.
So it wasn't just some intellectual exercise for him.
Nope. It was about empathy, about bridging that social divide. And it was also about challenging his own assumptions and biases. I mean, it couldn't have been easy for him to really step outside his own privileged bubble, but he really tried.
And you know what else is fascinating? His take on art. He didn't just see it as something beautiful or entertaining.
Oh, no. He believed that art had a moral and spiritual purpose. It wasn't just about aesthetics. It was about communicating truth, about connecting people, about making the world a better place.
So it was like a tool for social change in a way.
Exactly. Like, true art should make you feel something, think something, maybe even change something about yourself or the world.
Okay, so in his later years, his desire for a simpler life just intensified. He really wanted to renounce his wealth and his aristocratic status.
Which caused a lot of tension with his family, understandably. Imagine that.
I know, right? Like, can you imagine someone just walking away from all that wealth and privilege? It's so counter to everything we're told to value in our society.
Right. But for Tolstoy, it was all about aligning his life with his beliefs, even if it meant making some really tough choices, choices that alienated him from the people he loved.
And ultimately, he did leave his home in the final days of his life. And he died, tragically, at a railway station in Asipovo in 1910. He was 82 years old.
A railway station. It's a strangely symbolic ending for a man who was always searching, always on the move, in a way.
Right, like he never really stopped seeking truth and meaning, even up until his very last breath.
It's almost like his death, this final journey. It mirrors his entire life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Tolstoy's life, I mean, what a journey it's been, right? From the privilege of his aristocratic upbringing to this incredible intellectual and spiritual transformation, and his unwavering commitment to living according to his conscience, no matter the cost.
Absolutely. And the impact he had, I mean, wow. To think that his ideas about nonviolence and simple living resonated with people all over the world, including Gandhi, that's just incredible.
I know, it really makes you think about the power of one person's ideas,
That's
how those ideas can ripple outward and change the course of history.
exactly. And it makes you think about our own lives, right? Like,
Right.
what are the ideas that are shaping us? What do we believe in? And how are we living those beliefs out in the world?
Yeah. What would Tolstoy think of our world today, I wonder?
I don't know, but I bet he'd have a lot to say.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You'd probably be challenging us to simplify our lives, to be more compassionate, to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's hard.
And to really question everything, right? I mean, that seems to be the key takeaway from Tolstoy's life, his constant questioning, his search for truth and meaning.
Exactly. And I think that's something we can all learn from, whether we agree with all his conclusions or not.
Totally. So there you have it, folks, our deep dive into the life and ideas of Leo Tolstoy. What a ride.
What a life.
And now, the big question. How will Tolstoy's story continue to inspire and challenge us in our own lives? I mean, the guy was born over 2 centuries ago, but his questions, his struggles, his insights, they feel so incredibly relevant today. And I think that's what makes him such an enduring figure. So we leave you with that to ponder.
Yeah. Tolstoy's journey is a reminder that the search for truth and meaning, it's a lifelong process. And it's a journey that each of us must take for ourselves.
Until next time, happy exploring.
Happy exploring.
Yeah.